I've promised to speak about connection local variables. In the announcement, it was also said that I will speak about literally DevOps and NetOps. That is a little bit a lie. I won't speak exactly about this. I will use the techniques, but I don't want to give a presentation about. But anyway, whatever I do just during my presentation is based on the ideas. I don't know who knows this. These techniques, it's very simple. In fact, you have a big org file, and you write everything in your org file, what you do during your work, and that is the point, is that you have also source code blocks where you put everything inside what you do, and you can even run your source code on different machines. And so one point why I do it heavily at work is because I'm very lazy, and I like to have just one place, one Emacs buffer where I can do everything on different machines. And on the other hand, it's very simple to document everything. It's the first time that I make a presentation this way, so it's an experiment. I hope it will work. If not, okay, then you are my victims. Anyway, I recommend to everybody that you read the two, I believe YouTube thing or blogs, I don't remember, about these techniques. And the one is about the literate DevOps, where this guy, Howard Abrams or something like this, as far as I remember, explains the idea, how to do that. And in fact, he explains how he uses org to do everything as I've explained. There are very interesting ideas here. And most of this, what I'm doing just today, is stolen from there. And the other blog is from a French guy. Here's this one. And he does more or less the same. He references to literate DevOps, but he does it very heavily on different machines. And he shows there are 3 videos as far as I remember. He shows some techniques where he can even combine different source code blocks, where he can use the results of one source code block to make it as input for the other one, where he can automate all the work on different machines, and so on and so on. And because I'm, as I said, very lazy, I like this idea very, very heavy. Well, maybe if people are interested, we could even make another lecture about this. But on the other hand, these 2 blocks are explaining everything what I could tell about. And by the way, I will give this org file, which I just use now at the end for the Emacs Berlin GitHub site. And so I will upload it there so everybody can then just check what happens there. And so you have all the links. Well, that's all about literate DevOps and NetOps I want to tell today. Now let's go to connection local variables. At first, I will just give you a maybe boring overview about variables are used inside Emacs list. Most of this you very likely know already, but anyway, I need some motivation for what and why I'm doing something. So first we have global variables. That's very simple. So you have something you can just declare a variable foo, and then that's it. And you get an initial value, and we just do that, and we see the result. So describe variable, it's a variable foo, and its value is foo, and it has a documentation. Fine. You can then change it, also simple enough, and you see then it has a new value foo. as said. That's it. But global variables are not so interesting. More interesting are local variables. Here we have two different kinds of local. Okay, in general, there are some more cases, but in general, we have two kinds of local variables. The first one are let bound variables. So you can take this variable foo, just bind it locally, and then in the context of this let statement, you have just another value, or let form, let's say. So you can do that, and you see the value is blah instead of foo. And if you go outside of this let form, then it still has the same value as before. Nobody will be surprised. Simple and boring. More interesting are buffer local variables. I guess most of you have used them already, and they give you a very convenient way to bind a variable to a buffer, give it a local value, and when you change something, it is just local in that buffer. And when you leave the buffer and go somewhere else, then you have a global value, and in other buffers, it might have other values. That's a very, very convenient way to handle files and other things in Emacs buffers. You know that how it works. So we have a special comment set dir-local. This global variable foo I already have. I can give it a local value. I don't describe everything how to create buffer local values. There are other ways how to declare them, and so that's not so interesting. I just want to show the effects. And if you have a buffer, I have just set a temp buffer, then this has a buffer local value, and we see it now. The global value of this variable foo is still foo, but local in the temp buffer, which I have created here, is bus. Still simple. Oh, sorry. Still simple. And if you go outside the buffer and you are at the global level, it's still the same level foo. Still nothing special, still boring. Now we have the idea that we are saying, okay, we have this concept of buffer local variables, but we have some special files, or we have files where we always want to have variable which is related to that file. A file in Emacs is always visited in a buffer, so the idea is when we want to have file local variables, do it as buffer local variables. So under the hood, these are still buffer local variables, but oh, I must move the video somewhere else. Okay. But you have two different ways to specify it in a file. The first one you have seen already in my file. So you have the very first line where you can say it shall have a major mode. Okay, it wouldn't be needed because that is already an org file, but I have just given it for demonstration. And also for the presentation, I have set the fill column value. If we check it, then we will see that usually I have globally set to 70. For this presentation, I have changed it to 60, and it is file local value. Well, the second way to do this is not at the beginning of a file, but in a special block at the end of a file, when you have more than just one or two variables to change. That is here. Then you go to the end, and then you have something like this here, special block. And you see I have set some org local values for this org file in order to have a more simple navigation. There are also other features where you can even evaluate something which I don't want to explain just now. But the point is file local variables are still buffer local variables, and you can declare them inside a file. And every time you open a new buffer and visit that file, these variables are set buffer local. Okay. Still not so interesting, or a little bit more than the first one. The next concept, I believe it was introduced in Emacs 24, if I remember correctly, is that people have said, okay, we have file local variables, we can set them for a given file, but what if we have a directory with a lot of files and subdirectories with a lot of files, and we want to give them all these files and exactly these files in that directory, always the same variable set. The idea behind is that one is saying, okay, if you are developing something and you have something like a project and want to have some global project settings, that everything is the same for all files, then we shall have a central place where we can declare this and not enter it in every single file. And so you don't write it in a file, but you have a special file called dir-local.el, which is at the top level of your directory. You see, maybe you can read the link. Will show you now the dir-locals file of the Emacs source tree, and you know the Emacs source tree contains several hundred files, and there are some styles we want to preserve in every single file. And you see that is the dir-locals file in my directory source Emacs, where I have the whole source tree of Emacs. And something like this is set for all files we want to have the tab with. Okay, yeah. We want to have tab with 8, or we want to end the sentences with double spaces, or we want in C mode always have a C for C files given style, or in Emacs list files we want to have the items tabs mode nil, which means if you ident something, or here you ident something, there shouldn't be tabs, but always spaces, and you see this file itself, that's not the case, but for all the other files it should. It does not apply to already existing files, but it applies if you visit a file in a buffer and you edit it. Well, good. Now we have all the concepts of buffer local file, buffer local variables, file local variables and directory local variables. And now, you know, I am coming from Tramp, and here we have the need that sometimes we need variables are related to the connection you are doing. I will show you some examples, but the idea is when you go to, let's say as an example, to a remote machine and you want to open a file there, or you want to run a process, then you might need other settings than on your local machine. So that was the idea, to having something which is connection specific. We call it, meanwhile, connection specific variables. And that is something which is pretty new. I have worked on this end of last year, so it's still ongoing in Emacs 26. And the first idea was to emulate connection-specific variables by directory local variables, but that doesn't work. Not possible. Why doesn't it work? Directory local variables are always useful for buffers visiting a file. We need sometimes settings just for the connection or for processes, not for a file. So that does not work. Next point is that directory local variables are per default not applied for remote directory. The reason is very simple. One of the reasons is performance, because it takes time to traverse a tree and to look for the special file dir-locals. The other point is security, because you don't know what is inside such a file on a remote server, and you don't want to evaluate code which you don't know in advance. So I can show you this effect. Again, I have shown you here this dir-local file, and again, I want to show you how it works with this ident stubs mode in Emacs. When you have directory local files active, then this shall be deal. Per default, this is true. So we can have a look here. So you can see, maybe just by this, that this is usually true. But we have seen that in the Emacs source tree, it shall be changed. So let's just do that. So I open a file, just whatever from the Emacs source tree, and look what it is set in that buffer. So I evaluate it, and I see indeed that this ident stub mode is now set to nil. And globally is T, but because it's a directory local file, it's set to nil. That's what I expect. But when I go to a remote directory, I have emulated it here by just going to the same machine, but give it a trumpet name. Then I evaluate exactly the same code I have used here, but I use the name and say I want to evaluate the same code. You know, I'm lazy, and so I don't need to copy this code and to change. When I change it here, I have to change it here, and so on and so on. I don't want to do that. So if I run the same code here, it goes to remote, to the shell. It should be much faster. Well, okay, now it runs it. Oh, it's pretty slow. I don't know why. Okay. Anyway, it's now ready, and we see it's not set. Because per default, the remote dir-locals are not evaluated. You could overcome this problem by setting enable remote dir-locals to a non-nil value, like I have done here. Just to show you, then this ident stubs mode is changed. Now it's a little bit faster. Okay. Maybe it's because of our connection of I have to you, because usually it's not such slow. Okay. Anyway, now when we have enabled remote dir-local set to true or to something non-nil, then it's as before, it behaves like local, but it takes time. Well, another reason why we cannot use dir-local file, directory local files for connection local variables is because if you want to apply it for the whole remote machine, you would need to place it at the root of the file system at /. Usually you are not allowed to do that. You are usually you are not root. And even if you do it in whatever subdirectory, there is a subdirectory specific dir-locals file, it would be overwritten. So it does not work. And the last reason why you cannot apply it is that directory local files are applied very late. They are applied only when the file is visiting a buffer, but sometimes you want to apply them earlier. I give you an example. When you open an interactive shell, then Emacs or the shell command has to decide which shell to open. Usually it checks for a variable called shell file name, which in my case is TC shell. Well, and it just takes it. So I can show you here. So let us just clean up because I want to repeat this code and I just want to kill the shell buffer before. But what we do finally is just call interactively the shell. And we see we have a shell buffer now. Just a moment. Okay, now we have the shell buffer here, which is my TC shell. I believe it's visible here somewhere. It has opened my TC shell. That's fine. Okay. I have to go there. If we go to the remote directory, again, I use this for going remotely. And no, sorry, that's not that one. If we go remotely here, I call again the same code, but I'm remotely, then the shell command cannot use the shell file name, and instead it checks for a variable called explicit shell file name, which is per default unset. You see, it's needed. And when it is set, it takes this explicit shell file name, and when it is not set, it asks interactively for the path of the shell to be used. First of all, it is inconvenient always to write down the shell name. Second, for different remote machines, you will have different shells. So we can just check it. You see, I open it, and it's executing this code block. And because explicit shell file name is not set, it offers me to use the shell file name, which I could apply in this case, but on other machines, there's no TC shell, which is then stupid. Well, a lot of reasons not to use directory local variables for connections. So we have introduced a new concept, which is called connection local variables. Connection local variables are an additional mechanism that gives you different variable settings in buffers with a remote connection point. And it's still based on the buffer local variables concept. So that's the only way we can set local variables, but it's another way how to set these buffer local variables. There is also an important difference to file local and directory local variables. Okay, I will clean it up for the distribution. That means that file local and directory local variables are always set for buffers which are visiting a file. For connection local variables, this could be done also for buffers visiting a file, but it could also be done for buffers which are just internal buffers for connection, which run a remote process, whatever. First of all, we have a problem to identify a remote connection when we want to declare connection local buffers, connection local variables. And this is always, we will see it later, a property list where we declare the protocol, the user, and the machine. This looks like Tramp, where we have the method, user, and host. And all of you might know how remote file names are looking, but this is a little bit more general, this approach, because other applications but Tramp want to use it as well. And so we have decided not to use the Tramp terminology. So when you want to speak about a remote connection, you have always a property list which looks like this. Well, all of them are optional. You can even let them out. So like you see it with SSH, where you don't have a user, but okay. So then you must do two things. First, you must declare the set of variables. A set of variables and their values. That is something like you have seen in the file local variables at the very end here. Something like this. That is also a kind set of variables. And that is also like we have seen in the dir-locals.el file, where you also declare a set of variables. Here we do it such a way that we declare a so-called connection profile, where you say, okay, I want to declare or set a connection profile and their variables. First, I give the connection profile a name. It's just a simple, nothing else. And then I give them a list of variables and values which belong to that. For example, I want to set the explicit shell file name being bin bash and maybe an argument. And I want to have another profile which I call remote KSH, which has the explicit shell file name bin KSH and which has some other arguments. These settings are not related to any remote connection yet. These are just variable sets. So you can use it for different remote connections. And the second step, you must assign such connection profiles to remote connections given by the criteria. Oh, sorry, we should evaluate it, so otherwise my example won't work. Okay. Here you say, okay, I have a connection, which is what I have said, like a property list. And for this remote connection with sudo root machine, I want to apply the give the profile remote KSH. You can, by the way, even give several profiles. So it's up to your decision how you which hierarchy of variables you want to have. But anyway, when I connect to sudo via sudo to my local machine, I want that the variables declared in the profile remote KSH are executed or set. And when I connect to my local host via SSH, I want to have set bash. That's it. These two declarations you must do, and then you can see what happens. So we can open the interactive shell. So I have prepared two examples. I run the same code as I have done above. Still here, you see, in this code block. So I still run a call interactively shell, nothing else. So first I do it with SSH. And you will see that it doesn't ask me again for a shell because the variable explicit shell file name is already set. And I hope it will finish once. Okay. So we can go to the shell. You see that is SSH. And we can see what we have here in that shell. A lot of environment variables, and well, that's all from bash. And you can even see when you check for the bash environment, it's bash. Okay. Now let's do it the same for the sudo. It's again the same but I have just another remote directory. Oh, price. Well, there won't be a surprise because you will see that now this time it uses the K shell because explicit shell file name has been set to K shell. So that's ready. We see now we have a shell with remote directory, something like sudo. So there's another environment set, and we can even check here. We have here something, for example, we see that the K shell version is set. So you see it. Well, that's already the major point, how you do that. So now we can look how it works. So in order to make it happen, I have modified the shell command. Yes, go there, please. And here you see we are here now. Oh, I make it smaller, maybe a little bit. So we are here now in the function shell. And here I have added this code block, which simply says, okay, when we are, and that's before the explicit shell file name is checked for, you see. When we are remote, please apply all connection local variables according to the application tramp and to the protocol from tramp, the user from tramp, and the machine from tramp. That's all. So if you want to implement something yourself in your application that connection local variables shall be set, you have a template how to do it. It's simple enough. Okay. You can also go to the ELIST manual where I have tried to describe something. You see here, and where I have described all the functions. We have also even, which I don't have an example with, macro here with connection local profiles. There you even don't need to declare criteria. You can just temporarily take the profiles and assign them and let them assign to the current buffer and then run your code. You see? You can set something, whatever, and then you can say, I want in my current buffer apply all variables from remote Perl, and then I have a body which is executed, and so on and so on. I don't want to give you or read now everything what is described here, but anyway, I would be very grateful for feedback, for comments, whatever. A second example, which Till might remember, when we have prepared this presentation, Till has asked me what this is, literate DevOps and NetOps and so on. I have tried to explain him. And he said, that's something what I also do in org. So I have always in org some code blocks where I just call a shell and I want to know, for example, how much, what or how does my file system look like, how much I use already and something like this. That works pretty well for local. The local case, you see, you get something. That works also for the remote case. But then he said, well, I use it only for the local case because the remote case takes me too long. So it doesn't work as I want. You see, it takes time, it takes time, it takes time. I can take it off again. And I try it again. and you see a text time. Because every time you call this comment, a new connection is opened and tramp is invoked and whatever. Then I have set to till, okay, that's very simple. In org, there's the trick to use a session. A session in org, when you have code blocks, is only opened once, and everything else after that is run in that session, and so you don't lose time. So I said, oh, okay, perhaps I shall say, so that's the same. And then we have the result. And when we do it again, oh, sorry. When we do it again, the result comes again and again immediately. Nice, but he said, hey, what's that? The result is not what I want, because I want to have everything, the whole file system, how it looks like, and not this. And so we were a little bit helpless, and we've contacted even the org mailing list. And then it turned out, here we see what happens in this session, that the problem is the percent sign, because the percent sign is used as prompt. And that's why we see only this part and this part at the end. Bad. So I said, hey, that's again a nice idea how to use connection local variables. So I've said, okay, let's change the remote prompt. So I set a set of variables where I say, okay, I have another comment prompt, regex, where the important point that the percent sign here is removed. It's not used any longer as part of the prompt. And I must say that this comment prompt is used. And I apply then this profile to my remote connection, which is identified by sudo root and whatever. So, and I will speak about later, then I must also call something which sets the connection local variables when the shell mode hook is set. Why? Okay, let's evaluate it. Why I do need this step? The point is that, as I have shown you, when a shell is invoked, is that connection local variables are already set before the shell itself is invoked, the remote process is invoked. But later on, the shell mode hook for the shell buffer is called, and all major hooks, all major modes have the behavior that they kill all buffer local variables. So also the connection local variables are lost, and so I said, okay, then I must reset them again, and then the shell mode hook is run at the very end of opening a shell, and then I set them again. So I hope I have done that already. Yes. So now let's see how it works. Again, it's just this comment on the remote machine with the session, and here we are. The result is correct. The first time it is very slow, but now I can call it again and again, and I get immediately the results. I can also call something else, whatever, I get immediately the result. You see? Fine. That's, let's say, what I wanted to say about connection local variables. All of this is work in progress, as I said, so I guarantee you that there are bugs. And we still have some ideas. For example, what I have shown here to you, that we shall call setting connection local variables in the major mode hooks, maybe could be automized. However, I'm not decided yet whether it's really a good idea or not, because this won't be only for tram but also for other connection local variables. So I still don't know how to do that. Another disadvantage today is that currently for the protocol user and machine, you can just provide strings. It would be convenient to support regex. That is something which I try to do next time. Something else is that currently it does not support the default values in tramp. So when you write a remote file name like sudo, then you must still in the connection local variable say, I have sudo, I have root, I have the local machine. This is stupid. Maybe we can find a solution. And something else, tramp is the first application which uses it, but there are further candidates which have been discussed on the Emacs level list, which could profit from connection local variables like a GNU C server, IMAP server setting, whatever, or a GNU TLS, or the GNU TLS boot parameters, or in the network security manager, security policies could be set, or some proxy settings when you open something with URL, or TED has proposed to do some server-specific backends for authors, and so on and so on. Last point is what was proposed to extend it to a custom API. That is, if you declare a profile which is a set of variables, then in parallel it should be also declared as a custom variable, which you can then, and to declare templates that in the customization group you can simply edit. So these are just some ideas for further development. Well, other ideas welcome, feedback welcome, whatever. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Michael.
Yep.
Quick question, is it currently in master Emacs or in some release, or where is it?
It is in the master of Emacs 26.0.50. So you can just start to work. The last commit from this morning, where I fixed the bug. Well,
all questions have been answered already. So a small question for me. So the bug is still open, right? There is no good solution for this yet.
Not really bugs, but all what I have said here are something where I want to have some features. Currently, I don't know of any bugs. The last one I have fixed this morning. So, but I guarantee there are still bugs. I know me. And of course, you can always, if you don't want to go via the mailing list, you can always contact me directly. So you will have my email address. That's okay.
Okay, thank you. I think you will stay with us for the remainder of the meetup remotely.
Sure.
See us.
Sure.
Maybe we can just leave the screen on here.
Yeah, we'll do that. Just adjust the camera that you can see the rest.